ontogeny.
Okay, I think that might have done it. Let's see here. Can you see or hear me right now, anybody? Let me know. See if that scene came over successfully.
Ontogeny.
All right, excellent. Well. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Paleontologizing. It's good to see you here. Welcome to eastern Utah. Welcome to the earliest Cretaceous Cedar Mountain Formation, and welcome to Paleontologizing. I'm really glad you could make it today. We just arrived yesterday afternoon, just set up camp last night, and we've already got our shade tarp set up, and we're digging into the quarry. We're already finding bones, so we're making excellent time so far, despite some setbacks. So, yeah. Anyway, it is really good to have you here. If anybody's here for the very first time, let me give you an extra special welcome. Welcome to Paleontologizing. Let me introduce myself, too. My name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. You probably know already that a paleontologist is a fossil scientist, meaning a scientist who studies fossils. I study dinosaur fossils in particular. In fact, most of us in the quarry, that's what we do. We study dinosaurs. Paleontology is the study of fossils in general. Most paleontologists don't work on dinosaurs, but we are here in eastern Utah, near the town of Moab, doing just that. Digging up dinosaurs for further study. We think we've got potentially a brand new species of iguanodont dinosaur. And we actually have an iguanodontian specialist in the quarry with us, Karen Poole. You'll get to meet her in a few minutes. But yeah, anyway, it's a moderately hot day today. I looked at the thermometer earlier. It was in the triple digits. We'll see what it is when we get back to the quarry. But, anyway, the whole point of these broadcasts is to to bring fossil science to you at home, to answer what it's dinosaurs, basically to really bring this home for you. Know of how to do science, and don't be shy with those questions. It's really the point of these broadcasts, is for me to be able to answer questions for you live, so you kind of feel like you're really here, Grim Deviant, hello to you. Welcome. It's good to have you here. Yeah. An iguana what? An iguanodontian dinosaur, like Iguanodon. Yeah. But yeah. And it is pretty hot out today, Golganek. That's why I've got the sun helmet on. Casey Snowart, welcome. It's good to have you here, too. I hope you're doing well. Yeah. Cooking Fat, hello to you. And yes, we are digging up this iguanodont bone bed here, Crimson Carnotaurus. I'll tell you a bit more about that when we go over there to the quarry. Yeah. Excellent. And it looks like we've got 169 people already watching. This is brilliant. Yeah. And Slug Biker, of course we're taking precautions in the heat. We're professionals here, Drinking plenty of water, using sunscreen, and we've got an incredible shade tarp set up, too. Put together by, world-class tarpologist Don DeBlue. We'll talk about shade tarps in a little bit as well. And thank you for the bits there, Hogan. I appreciate that. Thank you for the resubs, everyone. Excellent. Yeah. And dying of heat today? No, it's not bad at all, Death Guru. It's only like, I don't know, 103? Something like that. So, pretty reasonable today. Not too hot. Somebody can use the weather command. Do weather for Moab, Utah. And yeah, Uncle Don, indeed. We're going to go see him in a minute, Lenina. Yeah. And Netmatch says, you've got me obsessed with paleoanthropology. Very cool. Different field, I know, but wouldn't have gotten into it without your streams. That's awesome, Netmatch. It's the whole point of me doing these broadcasts is, science outreach. Trying to get people interested in science. Trying to show you how it actually works. Trying to, I guess, make you feel like you're really here. And paleoanthropology, I've got some things in common with paleoanthropologists. Paleoanthropologists study ancient humans and human ancestors. Paleontologists are kind of other organisms more broadly, aside from human ancestors and early humans. But yeah. Anyway, let me walk you over to the quarry here real quick. Here's our Shade Tarp Palace. Right over here, over the quarry. Here's our setup. This is how I'm able to broadcast to you live. There's the Starlink dish. There's the router, and the solar battery, and the solar panels. And then there's the shade tarp that I use to keep everything from overheating too much. Yeah, and here's the quarry right here. So, we're actually pretty excited about this, because we got brand new shade tarps this year. 10 by 10s. Don will tell you about that in a few minutes, I think. But, look how shiny and pristine they are. We are pretty lucky. We're operating on a shoestring budget out here, so anytime we have any kind of new gear, it's always really exciting. These tend to get pretty torn up through a combination of wind and UV, so it's really nice to have new ones, and these are 10 by 10s, which makes them extra easy to set up. We had 8 by 10s before, so you got to make sure that you've got them lined up properly, and, is this the 10-foot side? No, it's the 8-foot side, turning around again. With these, it doesn't matter, which is awesome. And Brandington says, "Is the Oreopithecus here?" I think he might be lurking down in the quarry right now. Yeah. I'm glad you remembered that, Brandington. Yeah. We'll go meet the crew in a second. And Slug Biker says, "Do the solar panels provide enough power for all the energy needs for your stream?" They do indeed. Yeah. And if anybody needs to recharge phones or anything, too, in the quarry, they can absolutely do that also. Yeah. How do you keep your phone cool? I try and keep it out of the sun as much as I can, Cooking Fat, but that's it's tricky sometimes when it's this hot out. Anyway, let's go take a look at the quarry. And let me show you some of the bones that we're finding already. It's pretty soon. Yeah. That was our bucket. Today, from left to right. We've got Dr. Karen Poole. We've got Don DeBlue. We've got Ethan Cowgill. And we've got Fisher McDermott. Yeah, the Oreopithecus himself. So yeah, everybody's working right now, so I'm not going to bother them too much, unless you have any particular questions. But, yeah. Oh, and Ken's here too. Hello, Ken. Welcome. It's good to have you here. And Jim is not here yet. He'll be here. What's that?
Ken Rayburn?
Yeah.
Hey, Ken.
Yeah, there's Uncle Don there. Yeah. Oh, and Don, what's the shirt today? You got different, like, 5K and fun run and marathon
Pioneer
shirts.
Days.
Nice.
Pioneer Day is a week from today, I think. So.
Oh, nice. Kind of a regional holiday.
Yeah.
It's a Utah thing. Is it
July
an Idaho
24th.
thing, too, or just Utah?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
Huh. Anybody in chat know?
Yeah, I think it's the commemorates when the Mormons got to the Promised Land.
Oh, yeah. This is the place and all that? Yeah.
No, I don't know if they came in July. Seems awfully early. But
Yeah.
maybe they decided not to continue west because it didn't work out well for the Donner Party the year before.
Yeah, shoot.
Something like that.
Ken says hello to you, too. And Lenina wants to know, is Don aware that chat calls him Uncle Don?
No, but that's fine. I'll take it. I've been called much worse.
Yeah, so if anybody's not familiar with Don DeBlue, he's the assistant state paleontologist for the state of Utah and discoverer of Diabloceratops. If you know and love that ceratopsian dinosaur, thank Don DeBlue, because he'd found it and excavated it. Yeah. And Hogan says, looks pretty nice under the shade tarps. I've been using netting for shade when I was in the desert. Yeah, so, shoot, maybe we'll do a little shade tarp seminar at some point with Don. I don't think we'll do that right now, but he's got a whole philosophy surrounding this, whole, graduate level course in tarpology. Yeah, keeping us nice and cool under here.
It's a technique, it's a lifestyle.
There you go, yeah. Yeah. And let's take a look at the temperature too. Let's see. I just got this recently, and oh boy, yeah, there we go. 103.6 degrees Fahrenheit. In the shade, obviously. Yeah, not too bad. So yeah, kind of a chilly day for field work out here, but we'll manage. Anywho, a little warm, Sibley, I guess. I'll give you that. Yeah. And 10% humidity, so pretty humid too. Julia Thorne wants to know, do we know the climate of Moab, or this part of Utah, during the dinosaurs time period? So, we could talk a little bit about that. So when you say during the age of dinosaurs, that's really not narrowing it down too much, because dinosaurs were here, not just in Utah, but all across North America and across all 7 continents. They were around for like over 170 million years. The age of dinosaurs was pretty long. You could even argue it continues to today, because birds are living dinosaurs, and they outnumber mammal species like 2 to 1. But anyway, at this particular time, in these age rocks that we're digging, from the earliest Cretaceous period, Earth would have been a little bit warmer than it is today. Sea levels might actually be a little bit lower than they are currently at the very beginning of the Cretaceous. But this area would have been kind of a swampy floodplain throughout here. Right now we are something like 5,500 feet elevation here. This is high desert country. During the time of the dinosaurs, this would have been a much lower elevation. And, this would have been, like I said, a very wet, kind of lush area. You had tree ferns and conifers and cycads, these, like, almost tropical-looking plants all over the place. You had crocodiles swimming around and, lizards darting around all over the place. Yeah, would have been I kind of struggle to think of like a modern day equivalent to this. I wouldn't quite say like Louisiana, Bayou, Mississippi Delta. I'd say it would be more like, shoot, I don't know, maybe southern India or something like that. It's tough to say. We'll have Jim tell you more about that when he gets here on Friday, I think. Yeah. And Crimson Carnotaurus says, is it known which bird groups today are closest to the non-avian dinosaurs? I mean, they're all kind of equidistant because they all evolved from a single dinosaur ancestor. From one ancestral dinosaur species sprang all modern birds. So basically all modern birds are equidistant to their dinosaur ancestors, their non-avian dinosaur ancestors. Oftentimes, if we're trying to like draw analogs, if we're trying to like make an analogy between extant birds and extinct dinosaurs, the ones that are often the most helpful there are like what I call ratites, like big flightless birds, ostriches, emus, cassowaries. Being flightless, they don't have some of the same adaptations that volant birds, flying birds, have. So we can think of them as being much more superficially dinosaur-like, but strictly speaking, all birds are equally closely related to dinosaurs because that's just how evolution works, since they all sprang from the same ancestor, as far as we know. Yeah. Maybe like the Nile floodplain. Maybe that's an interesting idea, Cooking Fat. Yeah. And Pyro Kitty says, sounds kind of like northwest Florida. We're kind of swampy, but not as much as the Mississippi Delta. I like that, Pyro Kitty. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Whichever one is the most ridiculous, Triceratops is Wing. Yeah. Well, if we're talking about which non-avian dinosaurs are closest to birds, it would be some of the little feathered theropods, the ones very close to the origin of birds. Critters like Anchiornis, critters like, some of the troodontids and dromaeosaurs, your raptor dinosaurs from pop culture. They're very, very close to the origin of birds. Yeah. And welcome back outside. Thank you, Hugh. I appreciate that. Yeah. Scotland in a heat wave, says Brannington. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. And somebody was asking, what is it about high deserts? MS Coggins was asking that. Let me find that question. Sounds like a good one. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, what is it about high deserts where you can find dinosaur bones? Western U.S., Mongolia, Chile, and Argentina. I think a huge part of that is just a lot of exposed rock right on the surface of the ground. So not a lot of plant cover, not a lot of, asphalt parking lots. It's just exposed rock as far as the eye can see out here. And that is how we find fossils in the first place. A lot of people seem to have the impression that we just go and dig in a random spot and then happen to find bones. You'd never find anything that way. You could dig and dig forever and you might not find a single thing. The way that we actually find fossils in the first place is you walk along the ground and then you just look for anything that looks kind of like bone. In fact,
Ontogeny.
that texture there looks a lot like bone, but on further inspection, the kind of scraggliness, that texture, that's not actually bone. It's a very bony looking rock. But basically you do that, you find little bits of bone that are eroding out of a hillside or, edge of a canyon or something like that, and then you just try and follow that in and you see if there's any more coming out. And then you dig in, like after you've traced that up to the source, hopefully you dig in and there's an associated skeleton in there. So that's how this site was discovered in the first place, is Jim and Don and some other people were out here because there had been reports of dinosaur bone in this area. And this valley had been kind of largely unexplored for fossils. So they came out here just to kind of poke around. They said, these are rocks of the right age and the right type to have dinosaurs. And, in the early Cretaceous, a lot of these dinosaurs are probably undescribed. Let's come out here and poke around. And they eventually found a couple of different sites here. And it's like the more time you spend in an area like this, the more you kind of stumble across more stuff. And that's just been the story for the past 20 years in this valley. is finding more and more and more fossils. This entire valley is just strewn with dinosaur bone all over the place. There could be a contiguous bone bed that reaches from here like hundreds of meters in almost every direction. And what's really unusual about this particular spot is that it's on the valley floor. Normally when we're finding dinosaur fossils, it's on the side of a hill, the base of a cliff. It's something like that where there's some serious topography. Here, it's kind of in the valley floor, so we sort of dig straight down, which is really unusual for dinosaur paleontology, to have stuff coming out of the valley floor. And Lordy, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome. It's good to see you, too. Yeah, it's good to be here. And is this a new member to the general public of the Cedar Mountain, or are there any described fauna already? So, we've got multiple different dinosaur faunas in the Cedar Mountain Formation. Let me see if I can get you a visual aid and show you this. But, we think that this is going to be a new critter, which is really exciting. A lot of that is based on the stratigraphy. So we'll talk a bit about that, too. Where is my Utah dinosaurs one? I hope I don't have that back in camp. It might be. Yeah, darn. I think... Yeah, shoot, I don't think I grabbed those visual aids yet. I think I might have to get that tomorrow. Yeah. Apologies. Don't have that right now. But, so in the Cedar Mountain Formation, and Jim can tell you a lot more about this when he gets here, because he's been absolutely instrumental in naming a bunch of the different dinosaurs from the Cedar Mountain Formation, digging them up, all that good stuff. But this is from the very beginning of the Cretaceous period. So at the end of the Jurassic, you get all these really famous dinosaurs that everybody knows and loves. Stegosaurus, Apatosaurus, aka Brontosaurus, Allosaurus, Diplodocus, and all their friends. And they're all doing really well through the end of the Jurassic, and then something happens. And most of those dinosaurs die out. And you get the beginning of the Cretaceous period then, and you get a new fauna. So, a little bit higher where we are in the Cedar Mountain Formation, a little bit higher than us, stratigraphically, you get dinosaurs like Utahraptor. You get dinosaurs like Falcarius, that Therizinosaur. You get other cool dinosaurs like that. But we're a little bit lower than that. In fact, we're so low that these could be the earliest Cretaceous dinosaurs in North America. These could be the earliest Cretaceous dinosaurs in the entire northern hemisphere. So this is a really, really important site. And the dinosaur that we're digging up right now, various pieces of it from various individuals, it's called an iguanodontian. So it's a lot like iguanodon, if you're familiar with that critter, except we've got good reason to think that this is probably new. And Karen Poole, who is a specialist on iguanodontians, she's going to be working on this. She thinks it's going to be a new critter. And I trust her judgment on this, because she doesn't leap to conclusions about stuff like that. She's very methodical. So... yeah, pretty exciting stuff. That's exactly right, Paleostream. Yeah. Good to see you, by the way. Welcome, welcome. Yeah. And Paleo Entertainment, hello to you, too. Welcome to you as well. Yeah. Yeah. And are there links that provide more info to these new periods of faunas? Tanti? Yeah, if you look up the Cedar Mountain Formation on Wikipedia, that's probably your best single source of information. You can use that as a springboard for finding out so much more, because there are references there where you can actually get to the original scientific literature. So that's the place that I would start. Start on Wikipedia, Cedar Mountain Formation. Yeah. And what paleo info or type of info do you wish was more readily available to, or better understood by others? Says Uwuziel. Uwuziel, great question. I really wish that more people in the general public had an understanding of evolution, and of this idea that, life on Earth has a rich and long history. There's been life on our planet Earth for close to 4 billion years, we think. Over 3 billion, at least. Yeah, and dinosaurs are just kind of the tip of the iceberg there. In the grand scheme of things, dinosaurs are pretty recent. First dinosaurs evolved around 230 to maybe 240 million years ago. And the last of the non-bird dinosaurs died out 66 million years ago. So, yeah, that, and also just the idea that living things change over time, like the basics of evolution It's one of these things that the majority of people in the U.S. just have no idea about. Even though it's the most fundamental principle in all of biology, that living things change over time, and that they share a common ancestor, if you go back far enough. These are totally foreign concepts to most people, through no fault of their own. These concepts are just not well taught in U.S. schools for the most part. Many people never get to learn about this until maybe, if they're lucky enough to go to college and take a biology course, that might be the first time that they really learn about that. Yeah, which, as a paleontologist, this is my bread and butter, you know? It's the most obvious, the most fundamental thing in the world, and it inspires so much wonder and, understanding of... You really can't understand the present until you have some understanding of the past. Most people just don't ever have an opportunity to learn that. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so keen on streaming these things. Not just field work, but also back home in my office, you know? Talking about new fossil discoveries and answering people's questions and everything. It's, I kind of see it as a public service sort of a deal, you know? Uziel, great question. Yeah. And an early guanodontian from Portugal. Yeah, we might talk about that, Dr. Tara. There have been a couple of new early iguanodontians. Shoot, what was that one? It was like an early Ankylopalexian, I think. I'm forgetting what it was called, but it's very Camptosaurus-like, from the early Cretaceous of Portugal, I believe. Yeah. Cooking Fat says, what is the oldest ever find? So we have... I think there are evidence of microbes that go back almost 4 billion years. And the Earth itself is only about 4.5 billion years old. So that's pretty early on in terms of Earth history. Yeah. But if you're talking about earliest dinosaur, the earliest sort of undisputed dinosaurs we have so far are from Argentina in South America. Critters like Eoraptor. About 230 million years old, something like that. Yeah. Did you hear about Archaea and Eukaryota, possible connection? I did not, Haunted Soldier. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And what's the agenda for today's dig session? We're just opening things up right now, so we're pretty excited about that. We didn't think we'd actually start finding bone this early, and we've already started finding it after just being here for like less than an hour at the quarry, so pretty excited about that. Yeah. Oh, Hesperonyx. Thank you, Dyson Dinosaur. Yes. Yeah, excellent. But yeah. And have there been any major technologies or techniques that have changed the way you work since you graduated? Not really. I mean, the only thing I can really think of... Well, shoot, satellite internet is a big thing for sure. Here's our dish over here. So this has changed the way I work in the sense that we can get internet here at the quarry and I can stream. So that's a big deal. But maybe like photogrammetry has changed things a bit too. Being able to make 3D models of things just using your phone is a big deal too. We were doing that in Wyoming last month. And yeah, that was pretty cool. And do we use ground penetrating radar? We do not, Julia Thorne. It doesn't work, and even if it did, it would be too expensive. We don't have that kind of a budget here. Let me show you how we actually how we do our work. And Dyson Dinosaur, I'm glad you're here too. We have a fellow iguanodontian worker here in the quarry with us. There's Karen Poole. Filippo Bertoso is watching right now.
Filippo!
Yeah.
What's up?
He's pretty jealous right now, but we wish you were here. Shoot.
We're hoping to find more iguanodontians here.
Yeah, yeah. So everybody else who doesn't know what we're talking about, Karen Poole is a specialist in iguanodontians. She's one of the world experts in this group of dinosaurs, and so it's awesome to have her here. And
1 of 6 world experts.
Yeah, that's about right. About a handful of us out there.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah. And so she's going to be studying this critter, and I mean, are you pretty confident? You think it might be new without spilling too many beans? I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it's spilling any beans to say that we're probably looking at a new taxon here that we're going to describe.
Yeah.
I've got an abstract on it for SVP this fall.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I say we.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So for like scientists and hardcore people out there, if you're going to SVP,
Yeah.
you can check out. Assuming the abstract is accepted and all that, there'll be a little
It'd be
more
a shame if it
info
weren't, yeah.
on this particular animal, this iguanodontian.
Exciting.
We found a lot
Yeah.
of it from this quarry in the past. Hopefully, we'll get a little more this year and
Yeah.
put the pieces together.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Dyson Dinosaur. Filippo says Karen made an amazing phylogeny of iguanodontians. We discussed in person, actually, in the past about that. I'd love to collaborate in this.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll let you know. Like I said, we've got we should be presenting stuff at SVP, and
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll let you know what's up with that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh, and Joshua Knupe is in here too, the paleo artist from Germany.
Okay.
He goes by Paleo Stream here on Twitch. He also streams. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, we've got a lot of cool people in chat right now. This is awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here, let me go over your shoulder for a second here, Ethan, and if this is anybody's first introduction to digging in the quarry, and what I'm blocking Don's spot too. This is how it works, kind of slow and painstaking.
Here, you can throw it in there.
Just trying to clear away this rock slowly and carefully, looking for any signs of bone or anything. And is that a gypsona from last year right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so presumably we've got something underneath that.
Some mystery bone.
Yeah, nice.
There's a new bone right here, too.
Yeah, cool. Very nice. So yeah, it doesn't look like much when you first uncover it. This is not a super easy quarry to work.
Yeah, the stuff that we left from last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because as we dug out a bunch of stuff in here, we were hitting more, but we couldn't do anymore, so we wanted to just leave it.
Yeah.
We just jacketed it and put some burlap, and it makes it easy when you come back.
Nice.
Know where the bone layer is, and then in the morning we can get rid of some of the overburden and make some room. But because we're kind of quarrying into a cliff, which is kind of a no-no.
Yeah, we want to dig down if we
flat
can.
surface, but
Yeah.
since you were going to leave, we don't want to make a flat surface. We want to leave it as a cliff. So,
Right.
well, yeah, we're moving along probably quicker than we ever have in 18 years of returning to the quarry.
It's awesome. Yeah.
We got a crack team.
Yeah.
We usually have we managed to get our camp area set up this morning with the big portable garages and everything, and then we set up some shade and had some lunch, and then we know we got the bones already buried in here.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
it's true, we have them already buried, and then we just come and dig them off, and then we we shouldn't even joke about that problem.
Yeah. Shoot, especially not on the internet. Yeah, I've got some more bones right here. This is where I was working earlier. So this was exposed at the surface. You know, rock was covering everything up except for this right here. So Ethan hit that with some glue, and then it turns out it continues down here. So eventually I'm going to put a little gypsona jacket on that. And we've got this. Looks like it's going to be some bone as well. It could be the end of a limb bone or something going in. So we've got bones already. This is exciting stuff. We're pretty excited.
Yeah.
And yeah, oh, and we did hear about the stegosaur selling for $40 billion. That's pretty nuts, you know. I'm just kidding. I know it's 40 million, but still insane. Yeah. And person on says, "Is this the master of shade tarps, Dawn? Must be with how much shade there is." Yes, indeed. Yeah. Look at this.
Master tarpologist.
Yep. We need to bring our tarpology hats out here next time.
Yeah, it's really nice now because they're brand new tarps. So
Yeah.
they're not all
Especially
dirty.
film worthy.
They're film worthy. We don't quite look like a homeless encampment. Partially.
Yeah. Well, give us a few weeks.
A couple days will smell like a homeless encampment.
We've got 420 people watching. Nice. Yeah. Niffler says, for those of us who can't make it to SVP, can we have Karen on a future stream talk about her presentation? I don't know. That's up to her. And a lot of these things are, I don't know, when you're presenting at a scientific meeting, there's kind of an expectation of everybody keeping that under their hats, you know?
Or maybe something general about it.
Until
But yeah, I can
Yeah.
talk generally about iguanodontians if you want.
I think that'd be cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I've got some visual aids that you can use as well,
Oh, that
like
would help a lot, yeah.
some laminated like
Otherwise, I'm gonna draw
skeletals of
pictures in the dirt.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that'd be cool. But I don't want to put too much pressure on you, especially
No,
for
that's
the
fine.
first
That's
screen.
fine.
Yeah.
We could do that.
But that'd be awesome, yeah. I think it'd be really neat. Kind of give people a crash course in iguanodontians.
Iguanodontology.
Iguanodontology.
Iguanodontology. Love it.
Yeah. Crimson Carnotaurus wants to know, are these tarp setups common at dig sites in rough environments like this? Not as common as they need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also are out here in the heat of the summer, so.
Yeah.
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 It does depend on the
Crucial. I
environment.
think right
For
now,
sure. Yeah.
the surface temperature out there is probably 125, 130. So
Yeah, shoot.
if you were just laying out there, you would
Yeah,
Bake.
you'd bake. It'd be
hurting. And then the other,
would not be a fun death.
I mean, other than our comfort, the even lighting is really crucial.
Yeah.
Because it's so bright out here.
Here, we should, if any of the moderators can actually find Dawn's presentation on Tarpology. Was it Tarpology 501? 510?
Yeah, 501, yeah.
On the SVP website? Yeah.
Yeah, and if you Google Tarpology, it'll be somewhere kind of...
Nice.
Yeah, but Tarpology is also people who do, like, river rafting or backpackers, like, they call themselves tarpologists, too.
So it's a common term then. It's not
fairly
something
common
you came
term.
up
Yeah,
with.
people
Okay.
like just trying to do stuff with shade tarp.
Gotcha, yeah.
Usually improvised in some way, you know.
Uh-huh. Cool. Yeah, if you search vertpaleo.org Tarpology, you'll find it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's on the preparators page. Yeah, there's a PDF, and then there's I think they actually have the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
I've been called an evangelist for shade.
It's a good thing to have when you're out in the sun like this, for sure.
I'm still alive after all these years because of the shade,
Yeah.
shade building. And yeah, we're not the ones who developed, like using the corners and the conduit. That's already been done before. We've just
Yeah.
been refining it over the years.
So, yep. I'm sure we'll talk about this more in depth in the future. But this is just kind of whet your appetites right now, chat, for the rest of the next few weeks. But yeah. And Paleo Entertainment. Hear a lot about Hadrosaur skin being found. Well, shoot, maybe we can ask Ethan about that for a second. Can I bother you, Ethan? Because we had several sites this summer that we were digging at with Hadrosaur skin. The question is it just skin impressions, or is like the actual skin permineralized and preserved?
It's the impressions, yeah. So when the hadrosaur died in like the riverbank or next to riverbank, in the riverbed rather, and was buried by the river channel, the skin, the scales pressed into the soft sand, and then that sand turned into rock over time and maintained that impression.
So the skin kind of rotted away, but that hard impression is still left there.
Exactly. So it's not
Gotcha.
not so much like a petrified skin in the same way that like a log becomes petrified and turns into rock, right? It's really just sort of a trace or an impression of the skin,
Gotcha.
rather than a fossil of the skin itself.
Would like a mummified specimen be different, or is that the same general principle?
I
in
think
your
that would
estimation?
be different. There are like permineralized soft tissues.
Yeah,
in
where you
other
actually get like the
hadrosaurs.
flesh. It seems like it's
Where there's
yeah,
there's in Monosaurus where it's like the foot is like
yeah,
three-dimensional
with the
foot.
hands
Yeah.
in
all the
Aim
skin
and
on
H.
it. Yeah, the
Yeah,
mittens.
yeah.
Webbed feet.
Right. That's where the whole like webbed hand hypothesis came from in the first place. But it turns out it's probably just desiccated. It's more of like a fleshy hoof kind of a deal than it is like web skin. But yeah, I haven't really heard any like detailed work being done on how that actually happens, like
Yeah.
the taphonomy of
It's
that.
not very well
Stephanie
known.
Drumheller Horton is working on that stuff a lot.
Oh, cool,
With
cool.
that, what's the mummy called from the Clint Boyd and them are working on from North Dakota?
Dakota.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, she's working a lot on the taphonomy.
Nice.
Of,
Okay.
Of how that happens, and like, without being too gory, that finding and sort of comparing to modern animals and stuff, that kind of what happens is like if you get sort of a predation or something that sort of tears open the skin,
Mm-hmm.
then that actually helps everything get preserved.
Hmm.
Because bugs and microbes and all that will kind of get into the layer in between and eat out the muscle tissue, but they leave the nasty, harder to digest
Skin,
cartilage,
yeah.
ligaments, and skin.
Interesting.
And you get actual skin just like preserved like right on top of the bones.
Right.
That's sort of the going hypothesis. Without trying to steal Stephanie's thunder too much. Full
Right.
credit to her.
Uh-huh.
But I
That's super
saw
cool,
a
though.
talk that she did on that recently. So that's my from memory summation of it.
Awesome. Stephanie Drumheller, you said?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, so I guess you can look that up, chat, and hear it from her too. Do we have any indication that like the skin of iguanodontians and hadrosaurs was tougher than that of other dinosaurs? Because it does seem like they have more, like skin preserves more readily, either via mummification
We
or.
do seem to have a lot of hadrosaur kind of like
Yeah.
mummies. I don't know that their skin was any tougher. I think we just have a lot of hadrosaurs. Right?
So it's a sample size
if you
thing.
think about sample size, I mean, we have a fair amount of iguanodon, like Iguanodon
Yeah.
Bernasartensis, but most of them are from one locality.
Right.
They're all preserved under the
Bernasaur,
same,
yeah.
under the same sort of preservation, and I guess it didn't preserve skin. Or when they were excavated
They
in the
just
late 1800s, they
prepped
didn't
it
recognize
off or
it.
whatever,
I mean,
yeah.
that's a possibility.
I
as
have
well.
heard rumors that might be the case, that they're like, there might
Yeah.
still be preserved skin
But
in some of the stuff in
I
collections.
would guess that it's really just a sample size thing. We just have so many hadrosaurs.
It's also a
That-
lithology thing, like in Grand Staircase, right? Like the vast majority of hadrosaurs that they find are in hard sandstone, and in the Comparo, it's more hadrosaurs than don't have skin.
Weird.
Yeah. So it's just, they're getting preserved in
So
the
like
right
a preservational
way.
taphonomic sort of thing too.
Yeah,
Fluvial
if you think
environments.
about it, if you see like a cow carcass out here,
Yeah.
like eventually that skin just turns to like leather. Like
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty solid
It's just
stuff.
dry.
Uh-huh.
And you take that and you put it down the river and you bury it.
Yeah.
Like and then a hadrosaur skin would have been at least as thick or thicker.
Yeah.
And so
that makes
this is
sense.
Probably then
Yeah.
just more likely to get preserved that way. So maybe it's just if you're in Bernasart and you're in a swamp, your skin might rot out. But if you're out somewhere arid where then
So
it turns into jerky and then it gets deposited. Then
so desiccation would be like a necessary
Yeah.
ingredient there. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of
that's
sense.
Where, I think like Stephanie's work is a little different. She was basically saying even in a humid environment,
Uh-huh.
because basically just the bugs and microbes and everything will get in there and eat that fleshy stuff out. That you don't even need it to be dry necessarily
Interesting.
to get those sorts of conditions.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
actually be in
Cool.
better shape that way. Like after it's all desiccated.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
all
It might be
nasty
kind
and-
of yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think you would get more like mammal mummies too, or something big, like fossil elephants or something. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I wonder if that does happen. I don't know enough about Cenozoic mammals. Yeah. Anyway, cool. Thanks. 551 people watching right now. Fantastic. Hey, let me go walk around for a minute.
You're jonesing because you didn't do it for 2 days.
I know, yeah. We're like, I think it was more like 5 or 6 days, but yeah.
Oh, has it been that one?
Yeah. Last stream was last Friday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hade says they do look like they do some digging. Well, thank you, I guess. I mean, that's certainly what we're doing. Welcome to Paleontologizing. It's good to have you here, and for anybody else who might be new, welcome to Paleontologizing. My name is Danny Anduza. I work on dinosaurs. I study dinosaurs, I publish on them in the scientific literature, and I talk about dinosaurs 5 days a week, usually from my office back home in California, but it's summertime. So I'm out here in the field doing field work, digging up dinosaurs, and streaming it. I'm not actually doing a whole lot of digging right now at this moment, obviously, because, this requires some concentration and being able to, like, walk around with the camera and everything. But later on this week and in the next 2 weeks after that, I'll be setting down the camera in the quarry and we'll be kind of digging together. So that should be a lot of fun. Anyway, if you've got any questions at all, do not hesitate to ask. That's what these streams are all about. And glad you could be here. I'm broadcasting live, obviously, from the desert of eastern Utah, way out in the middle of nowhere. But it is beautiful country, very dry, and pretty hot. Yeah. It was 103 degrees Fahrenheit last time I checked. In the shade, 103 degrees. It's a lot warmer here in the sun. If you were to just lie down and try and take a nap, this would not be good. It's probably like 120 degrees in direct sunlight on the surface, like Don was saying. So yeah, not really the sort of place where you want to take a snooze. And are there plant people out with you this dig? Not here today cooking fat, but you probably remember in Wyoming we did have some plant people with us, which was awesome. Yeah. And found anything next to the Iguanodontian so far? Yes, Paleostream. We've got some theropod bits and some ankylosaur bits too. All of which should probably be new because we don't have anything from this particular faunal level so far. This is like when Jim Kirkland is here on Friday, maybe we can talk a bit more about that, especially if he gets here early. But yeah, you'll be hearing a lot about the geology and these evolving faunas. But this could be the oldest Cretaceous dinosaur site in North America, if not in the Northern Hemisphere. This could be Valanginian, very beginning of the Cretaceous. So we'll have Jim talk about that in depth later. Yeah. And let's see here. What's your favorite and least favorite dinosaur or prehistoric animal, says Whisper Ghost? Oh, goodness. I've got a lot of different favorite dinosaurs. I don't know. Least favorite? I don't know. I try not to be that negative, It's a tough one. That's a tough one. Yeah. And once you let Jim talk, oh yeah. Joshua, Yeah, and an Iguanodontian on top of that. Exactly, Dyson Dinosaur, yeah. Iguanodontian, theropod, ankylosaur. Yeah, we do have some evidence that there's like a big Carcharodontosaur lurking in this environment too. We found a tooth. I forget who exactly. It might have been Ethan who found that. But I've seen it. It's sizable. So a big Carcharodontosaurus type critter was living in this environment too. Obviously more primitive than Carcharodontosaurus because it's much earlier in time. Carcharodontosaurus is what, like Cenomanian? This might be Valanginian or Berriasian. Yeah. Shoot, I think it might actually be. Well, we'll see. But yeah, anyway, good stuff. Yeah, Irritator. Who was saying that? Freeze was saying this. Free the Sandwiches says, wasn't there one literally called Irritator because it was annoying to classify or something? It was annoying to prep. So that was a dinosaur from Brazil, and it was smuggled out of the country and sold illegally. So, the critter was contraband. But the fossil dealers who sold it, or somebody along the line, within that black market, they repaired parts of it with auto body filler, basically Bondo, to try and make the skull look more complete than it was. And so they really did a number on that poor dinosaur. They added a bunch of fake bits that were very difficult to remove. And so as a result, the people who named it Irritator. Irritator Challengeri. Anyway, just another example of why you're playing with fire when you buy dinosaurs to work on. I don't recommend it. It's best to get your dinosaurs straight from the source, like we're doing here. Of course, we're collecting here on public land. This is Bureau of Land Management land out here in eastern Utah. So we've got all of our permits and everything in order. We're, always striving to be good stewards of the land. And then all of these fossils are going to end up in the collections of the Natural History Museum of Utah, which is part of Utah University, or University of Utah, rather. So these are all going to Salt Lake City afterward, to NHMU, the Natural History Museum of Utah. And these fossils are going to be held in the public trust. They'll be there in the museum long after all of us are dead. That's the whole point of finding these fossils in the first place, is to make them available for scientific study. If they were part of a private collection, then, you can almost guarantee they'd be lost within 100 years. But when fossils are in a museum like this, a proper fossil repository, like a federally recognized, licensed museum like this, The whole point of that museum is to make sure that these things are safe for hundreds of years into the future. And so there are fossils that were dug up literally hundreds of years ago in places like England, and those fossils are still available for study today. These wonderful historical specimens. So that's why we're out here doing this, is, to make these fossils available for scientific study. Some members of our team are actually going to be publishing on these, and this is all for the benefit of science, for the benefit of the advancement of human knowledge. So it's not like we go out here for fortune and glory, because we find neither of them out here. We're here for science. But yeah, again, where they belong. Exactly, Sabini Bean, yeah. And are the fossils everywhere this area? You think they are hard to find? Seppo Supo? Yeah, so a lot of these fossils are kind of tricky to identify and find in the first place. They're not super obvious. They tend to weather in ways that make them difficult to find. Like the particular lithology means that the bones are they're not super easy to identify. You don't get a stark contrast with the surrounding rock. They can be really hard to spot. But we still do get poachers out here in this valley. There have been a number of times when important fossil specimens were just poached by rockhounds, by vandals, by, people thinking they'd take a cool souvenir home, and it turns out no, that's a specimen that we were planning on collecting. Something really scientifically important, and then it probably ends up in somebody's rock garden and then just crumbles to dust after a few years, Yeah, it happens. It happens a lot in Utah, especially, it seems. But yeah. And hey, Murph, thank you for your ongoing support. I really appreciate that. It's good to see you. Yeah. And, yeah, anyway. We've got 517 people watching right now. If any of you have got any questions at all, don't hesitate to ask. And it is field time again, Steely Dan. It will be for the next 3 weeks, it looks like. Pretty exciting. Yeah. Let me go stand under the shade for a minute and drink some water. There we go. Maybe I'll actually do some digging.
Better get back in the shade.
Nice. What's that?
You better get back in the shade.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. It's hot out there. Yeah, let's look at our temperature. Ooh, 104. It's climbing a little bit. Yeah.
I know, I would do this first thing in the morning.
Yeah. It would be smarter to do this first thing in the morning.
Huh?
It would be smarter to do this first thing in the morning, yeah. But this actually corresponds with my normal streaming time, so.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say, and I can see how afternoon is probably better viewership.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And thank you, Sculpin, for those gift subs. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Here, let me drink some more water.
And they're not people close to our time zone, because he likes to kind of get up and watch in the morning, while he's eating breakfast, and there's no one gamers in our time zone aren't streaming at 6 in the morning. So
There we go.
I think there's one guy he watches who's German, but he streams in English. And then somebody else who's in Hawaii.
Let's see.
Really upset. I think he streams late in Hawaii. It works. I don't know.
Jesse Nothing says, did you find any dinosaurs? Oh, you bet. We've been digging dinosaurs out of this particular quarry for years and years now. So we know that the stuff is here, and there were bones exposed on the surface when we got here today.
We've done 15 of the last 17 years. We've spent 4 to 6 weeks.
Holy cow. In this particular valley here.
So this is our 16th of the last 18.
Nice.
We really only missed 2015 and 2020. Since 2007.
Wow. Right.
So, yeah, we're probably 3,000 mapped and collected bones. Yeah.
That's incredible. Jeez.
And we probably prepped 800 of those.
Right, yeah. So. Shoot, and this area feels like home to me. This is my 3rd season here. But yeah, shoot. 16th for Dawn. That's nuts.
Yeah, over a year in total.
Yeah. Yeah.
We figure about 450 days, between Jim and I.
That's awesome.
We
Yeah.
didn't all, we're not here for the entire 4 to 6 weeks. We take little breaks, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, we certainly go. Yeah, when we were doing the little thing for the BLM, I figured us and our crews have spent about 30,000 daylight hours out here.
Shoot, 30,000 daylight hours. That's nuts. Can you maybe speak for a minute about how this site was originally discovered? Because we've got people in the chat who are curious about that, and you'd be able to tell it obviously much better than I could. You were here.
This little area in here, little embayment of Cedar Mountain Formation and Morrison Formation below us. So Helmut Doling, who just passed away at the age of like 93 or 94, just
Wow.
a couple of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
he probably did more field geology in Utah than any other human.
Mm-hmm.
He started working in the 50s in Utah,
Mm-hmm.
and he was mapping like right up until 2 weeks before he passed away.
Jeez.
So he was still mapping in his 90s.
So creating geological maps for
Geological
everybody
map,
watching.
yeah,
Yeah.
so Helmut Doling, so he's
Yeah.
worked on hundreds of maps. I mean, there's probably virtually nowhere in Utah that dude didn't stand at some point in his
Right.
career.
Yeah.
So Helmut had a preliminary map of this area
Uh-huh.
that Jim saw, like in the 90s. It was just when they began working the Cedar Mountain Formation and realizing, they've known for a while that it was distinct from the Morrison, but they didn't know that it had so many fossils in it.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, once you started looking and finding, it turned out it's
Yeah.
one of the richest fossil-bearing formations anywhere on the planet. But
Mm-hmm.
so Jim, when he worked out of Grand Junction, worked at Gaston Quarry and other places, but he saw the map and he saw that Helmut had mapped Morrison down here, and then Jim
Uh-huh.
was thinking, I bet some of that is actually
Cedar
Cedar Mountain.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then he came in here and then started, found that area by camp there where there's little osteoderms and teeth and stuff. So he found
Mm-hmm.
some fossils here. So he used to bring people in, during the 90s and then early 2000s. We would pop in here and we'd look around and find Guanodont teeth, croc teeth, theropod
Yeah.
teeth, and mostly just those little baby skin bones of the little osteoderms.
Osteoderms. Yeah.
So then I think it was the spring of 2005,
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Cavan, Scott Madsen, Jim and I. Jim was it was in the springtime, so it was cool, and we could prospect, and he was like, there's got to be more out there just based on how much stuff was on that flat area. So he said, let's go out and spend the day cruising around. And we kind of did what typical paleontologists do, is you kind of head to the edges of the slopes. And
Yeah.
so we traversed the whole bowl and, spent the day and really didn't find anything significant.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm sure we could easily have missed stuff, because it's just...
It's hard to
morning deer
find a lot
walking.
of this stuff. Yeah.
So,
Especially here.
we were over by that little tooth flat, and Jim found there was a pretty good sized osteoderm, big enough in situ. Most of the ones over there are just ones that have kind of lagged out because it's so flat, the wind and the rain, they just kind of, they slowly come to the surface, and then they're a little bit more resistant, so they just sit there, so we can find them. But so Jim decided that he had to jacket this osteoderm. It's actually a pretty nice one that we have, and it's an important one, but now we've got obviously quite a few more. But
Yeah.
so then Scott and I were both like, Jim, it was getting late in the afternoon, and we were just like, well, we don't want to sit here watching Jim. That's pretty boring. So
Go walk around.
yeah, let's walk around. And then I was like, well, the stuff over there is kind of in this green. So I kind of went to the wash over there, so I could kind of tell, this is like that same
Same kind of stratum. Yeah. Yeah.
But usually when it's this flat, you just don't tend to gravitate toward it.
It's weird. I've never worked at a site like this
Yeah.
where everything's just on the valley floor.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
walked around the corner in the wash over, 100 meters to the south of here.
Mm-hmm.
And as I came around, I came up and I'm like, oh, well, there's bone here, And so I saw a couple different bones sticking out. So I'm like, oh, there's. And then as I wandered over towards the road, just, maybe 15, 20 feet from the road, there was all this bone just pretty much laying there. And it turns out some of them were actually the Yurgavuchia. So the
Oh,
first
nice.
dinosaur we
Yeah.
think here was
Somebody look up Yurgavuchia
yeah,
and
the very
post to
first
Wikipedia.
thing I
article.
found actually turned out to be like a brand new dinosaur.
That's awesome. Shoot.
So I found
Yeah.
some bone there, and
Uh-huh.
then at the same time I saw Scott Madsen over here, and it was actually, within 10 feet of here is where he found it. It was part of the iguanodon jaw sitting there.
Nice.
So then I looked up again, and Scott was gone. Well, it turned out he had found that and went over to get Jim.
Uh-huh.
And then they came driving up, and Scott was like, "Oh, I found bone over here." I'm like, "Look at this!" And then it turns out, as we looked closely, it turned out there was bone coming out in the road. Like people had been driving over this bone for years
That's
and had
nuts.
no idea.
Yeah.
So so that was spring of 2005, and then we just collected a few of the things on the surface. But then we came back, I think, in the fall of that year,
Uh-huh.
and collected some of the Yurgavutchia stuff, and then in 2006 is when we applied for the excavation permit.
Right.
At that point, we were still digging at Crystal Geyser.
Yeah, the
and
Falcarius
Don's- and
bone bed.
Don's Ridge.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
got the Guana Colossus. So in 2007, we did part of a season at Don's Ridge,
Mm-hmm.
and then the second part of the season, we took all our gear and drove it over here. So it was in the summer of 2007 was our first
Nice.
couple week field season here.
Yeah.
And then we started finding enough stuff, so we worked at that spot over there that we kind of just dubbed it Don's Place, because that's where I found this first bone.
Yeah.
And while we were working there, we realized there was another spot with tons of bones, and we didn't want to leave Uncle Jim out, so we named it Jim's Place. And then,
Uh-huh.
and then there was Tom was with us. We found a place that we gave Tom's Place, and then so we mainly worked over Don's Place, Jim's Place, lots of iguanodon, and a fair amount of ankylosaur.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2010, we were mainly working Jim's Place, and there was a big flood one day, big thunderstorm, and
Yeah.
these washes were all flowing. I actually wasn't here when that happened, but I know like the Suarez sisters were, and then but then after that happened, Gary Hunt, or who was interning with us, he was walking down this wash, and he noticed bones sticking out of the bank that had just been exposed by that flood.
Right.
So on the very last day of the 2010 season, it was just Jim and Gary and I, and so we thought, let's explore. So we dug in, and we're like, holy
Bone
crap,
everywhere.
there's a sauropod going in. Like we're finding the big ribs and stuff.
Right.
And so we were like, wow, there's a sauropod going in.
And that would be Mirasaurus, right?
Yeah. So then in 2011, we opened up, and we call it, because it's in this little island between the two splits of the wash.
Mm-hmm.
We figured, well, let's mix it up and not call it Gary's Place. So we call
Gary's
it
Island.
Gary's Island, kind of like Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
So then we started digging in 2011 on that, and then I actually opened up a bit of Jim's Place with a few people,
Mm-hmm.
and then after a day or two, they're like, all hands on deck, forget about Jim's Place, let's come over here, because it turned out we had
Yeah.
vertebra and limb bones, and we ended up getting almost the entire animal
Yeah.
of Mirasaurus.
And that
So-
beautiful hind leg, too,
Yeah.
with all in articulation like
yeah,
that.
mired down in the mud.
So
we
you-
ended up,
I should elaborate on that a little bit, because I think people in the chat will think it's cool. Like, the idea there is the animal actually got mired, like it
yeah,
was
stuck in the mud.
so stuck in the mud like that, preserved in 3D in articulation, so the legs just kind of going more or less straight down, right? Kind of in at an angle. Okay. Yeah. Interesting taphonomic
angle, so
mode
yeah,
there,
yeah.
miring.
Pretty much had the whole foot, and then the
Uh-huh.
tibia and fibula were coming up, and then nearby was a femur, and
Mhm.
stuff was jumbled around, and then lots of vertebra and ribs, and we took out there was one pretty massive jacket that we took out because there was
Mhm.
a bunch of vertebra and other bones that we couldn't really get around, so we took out one pretty good sized one, but luckily, since you could drive right to the
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, we pretty much,
Road
I
is
think
right there,
Gary
basically,
and
yeah.
Jim and I were able to jacket it. We incorporated, actually, we had some old garage poles that we
Oh,
put
nice.
into it. And
The splints, yeah.
And we were able to use the winch from the truck to flip it up, and then we plastered the bottom. And it was just moving the truck.
So it was
And then
suspended like that as
we
you were
had it up
jacketing?
for a little bit. Yeah, there's some
Nice.
pictures of us standing next to it, because we were able to get some plaster underneath.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
was some windows that we had to plaster. And then we had an engine hoist, a little A-frame thing. That
Nice. Yeah.
So we got it up on that and drove the truck underneath it and set it down, and then Gary actually took it, once we put it on the truck, it was so big that we couldn't really put anything else in there, so he actually
Yeah.
did he just drove up to Salt Lake to unload it and then came back and got the rest
Nice.
of the gear. So
Yeah.
that would have been 2011, and then 2012 we dug more of it out, and then as we were digging the Mirasaurus, as we flipped jackets, we realized that there was another level of bone underneath it,
That's this that we're digging right now,
which
right?
was mostly iguanodon.
Yeah, yeah.
So then it was kind of sitting there, so that south side was coming up to the surface. So
Mhm.
we knew because everything's dipping slightly to the north,
Right.
that's where it hit the surface, so that we knew there was no more in that direction, so we kept coming this way.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of the sauropod, and as that kind of ran out, then we got kind of lower, and we got down to the iguanodont level, and so we kept working in this direction. And then for a while, we kind of stopped because we were out of the sauropod. We actually worked into this hill a little bit ways. It was one of the years that Karen was out, and so at the beginning of the season, we kind of worked, and we were like, well, we're not finding much here, so then we abandoned Pitt and went over to went back to Don's place in the Bend area, and then we hit a little juvenile iguana, semi-articulated skeletons, and we worked that.
Nice.
And that was over near, there was an Ankylosaur pelvis the first year from over there, and then worked that some more and got more Ankylosaur stuff, but then we were hitting a little bit of diminishing returns over there, so then we thought, well, let's head over here. When they did, we had a bobcat come out to move some of these piles because we had kind of built up all these piles, and they spread it out, and then we knew we had enough of that side was all excavated, so what we wanted to head this way, but the wash came right down this, so we actually burned this up so that we could isolate this one.
To move the, where the water would flow, moving the wash, basically.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And then when the bobcat was out, they were clearing these piles near Jim's place, and then they hit some bone, and Karen was out with us, so it turned out there was bone going the other way. So then we started working that, so we named that Karen's Place.
Nice.
So then we did a couple seasons just working Karen's Place,
Uh-huh.
and then we know there's more iguanodonts going there. We could go anytime. All these places we could go back to and just keep digging.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of just like, let's go somewhere else. And then this area, because when Ethan was out when he was younger, this was kind of the sloping part, and we had a flood one time, and the bones he was working on were like, we had to bail the water out.
Shoot.
So we kind of called it Ethan's Swamp,
Yeah.
or Ethan's Bathtub.
Uh-huh.
And then as we moved this way, we then started calling it Ethan's Wash, just because it sounded better
Yeah.
than Ethan's Bathtub or Swamp. So then, what was that, 2 years ago, we started digging in here, and we got a bunch of good stuff. And
Oh, so I was here for the first time we were actually digging in this area? Okay, nice.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's nice to be here at the beginning of something.
This year we're-
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, cool. I hope thank you, Don.
yeah.
Yeah, appreciate that.
That was the long-winded.
The whole history.
I hope, chat, that gives you some impression of what an important area this is and how we could just continue working this. This whole, valley floor in here. I don't know, to hear Jim and Don tell it, it's just absolutely chock full of really, really important earliest Cretaceous dinosaurs. You could have a crew of potentially like hundreds of people out here working all summer, and you wouldn't exhaust us for years and years and years. It's pretty cool to think about. Yeah. And Snapping Neuron says, whoa, shaded work area, these guys are pros. Yeah, that's thanks to Don. Don is the Shade Tarp King. And I think later on in the next few weeks we should do maybe a little episode about shade tarps, why they're important, how you set them up. It's how you do all this properly, because it really is a lifesaver when it's this hot out. It's like 104 degrees out right now. But yeah. And Great Lore, thank you, Silly Cat. Yeah. And Digital Meow Mix asks, have you ever had desert critters visit you at a dig site or interfere with a dig? Yeah, that's fairly typical. This is my 13th summer working in the field. And so I've got a lot of stories about different desert critters making appearances. And actually, just today, there was a beautiful, large lizard that was here when we got back from lunch. And it was just running really quickly around. And then I stood perfectly still, try and get some pictures of it. Beautiful lizard. Kind of a tan yellow color with these lovely leopard spots all over it, like a leopard rosette pattern. Gorgeous. I actually need to log it on iNaturalist and see what it is. Could be a whiptail lizard. I don't know if there's such a thing as a leopard lizard, but man, if I'd had been the first person to encounter this, I would have called it a leopard lizard. Anyway, it went right up to me and then ran between my legs. Beautiful little lizard. But yeah, we get pack rats sometimes. We'll try and build nests in the quarry overnight. We've had other rodents, chew chew on our brushes and stuff at nighttime. So it's important to pack away all the tools and make sure that they're not, they're not being devoured by desert critters at nighttime. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. And let's see. Not only are you heating, but yeah, the tools can cause burns. It's true. Yeah. So those poles right now that are supporting the shade tarp are made of aluminum, and they get obscenely hot during the day. And actually, these tools that I left over here, next to our satellite dish, these are going to be very hot to the touch also. So it's important to keep things shaded as much as you can. Because this shovel right here, yeah, that's really hot. This pick that I have here is, ow. Yeah, that's really hot too. So it's important to keep these things in the shade if at all possible. Luckily, I'm not going to be using these today. We're not doing overburden, so I don't need the pick or the shovel. We just had bone right there at the surface. We could just dig in with the little hand tools. But one of these days, when it's cooler in the morning, we'll do some overburden. So we'll do some picking and shoveling and clear away more of the rock from above the bone layer, so we can get right down in there and dig up some bones. Yeah. And yeah, imagining a coyote taking a bone or something, or taking your food. Luckily, the bones you can't just take them out of the quarry. They'd fall apart. There's a reason why we do plastered, field jackets made of plaster and burlap. That's how you safely get the bones out without destroying them. It's not like the bones are solid and you can just pick them up. Like, they will absolutely crumble. I'll show you in a few minutes. We'll go back over there. Yeah. And, yeah, anyway. Long-nosed leopard lizard, says Paleontologist V. It could be. It did have kind of a longer nose. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And Starlink, nice. Yeah, that's how I stream from the field. When it works, which is really nice. Yeah. And, is that a whole new iguanodont that's getting dug up? Joe Wingy? It is indeed, yeah. So we've been digging this critter up for 3 years now. When I say critter, I mean there are multiple individuals in here. From different growth stages. So we've got juveniles, we've got presumably adults, we've got small individuals, large individuals, and that's going to be really helpful because we'll have some handle on ontogenetic change. So we know that a lot of dinosaurs change a tremendous amount throughout their lifetimes as they grow and mature. So a juvenile dinosaur of a particular species might look totally different from an adult. So it's important to have bones of both juveniles and adults if you really want to understand the biology of a dinosaur. Because we're really lucky at the site that we've got bones of juveniles and adults, it seems. So, pretty cool stuff. Yeah. And we've got, I don't know how many bones from this critter so far. From this species, I should say. All out of this this bone bed here. It's quite a few. These animals fell apart after death, so they're all disarticulated. It's just different bones scattered all over the place. It's not like we've got a beautiful articulated skeleton all in life position. The bones are scattered, which makes it a little bit trickier to dig in some ways, but a little bit easier too. Sometimes when everything's all in articulation, it's really hard to dig up. Like, how do you get that thing out of the ground without destroying it? You've got to make a great big jacket. When the bones are disarticulated, when they're all separate, it sometimes makes your job a little easier, even if it's not as spectacular to look at, Yeah. And Wee Nessie says, wow, just came across this. Awesome. Welcome. It's good to have you here. Are you going to demonstrate Lagom Core? Yeah, I can show you what the bone looks like in a few minutes. Yeah. And does that tell us how they died, if the bones are everywhere? Laura Wren, what a great name. It does tell us that they were there on the surface for a while before they got buried. So some of these bones also seem to show breaks, so like they were probably these dinosaurs died in or near a swamp, and they probably got stepped on by other dinosaurs. They were like rotting there on the surface for a long time before they actually got buried and preserved. So it does tell us something about the taphonomy, about like what was happening to these animals after they died, in between when they died and then when they get discovered. And Volcano Doc, how are you doing? Welcome, Melissa. Good to see you. Don't forget to take very good measurements of your beard today so we quantify the gloriousness of your Utah field beard. Volcano Doc, I made the mistake of getting a haircut before I came out here. Well, the haircut wasn't the mistake. The mistake was saying yes to a beard trim also, because she really just lopped this off. And so it's got a lot more growing to do before it looks normal again. But, yeah. Anyway, at least it's nice and short. It keeps me a little bit cooler out here, because it is not cold. And Dasher Fernando stuck at the airport for 5 hours. I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you for streaming and making the time go. You bet, Dasher. Yes. And Sporky 00, that's only partly true. So when we're talking about fossilized dinosaur bones, it's not like all the bone material has been completely replaced by minerals. It's a spectrum. In some cases, you do have full replacement of the original bone material by minerals in the groundwater and minerals in the surrounding rock. And in some cases, you still have a lot of the original organic material in there. For most dinosaur fossils, it's probably like 50-50. A lot of the original hydroxyapatite, so like the mineral part of the bone that's in your bones right now as you're watching, if you were to be fossilized, a large part of that original hydroxyapatite would still be part of the fossil. You know, they're only partly mineralized during the fossilization process. It is a spectrum, of course, but there's usually original organic material in there. Original mineral material, at least, from the original animal skeleton. Yeah. But yeah. Remember a Charcha being in Jurassic Portugal? Oh, Carcharodontosaur, Dr. Terra. It could be, potentially, yeah. Yeah. In Lino Fresco, this is a beautiful area. Yeah. Near Moab, Utah. Arches National Park is just over there. If we were to climb to the top of that ridge, you might even be able to see it with binoculars. So we're not too far from Arches National Park. Moab is over there too. It's beautiful country out here. It really is. We're really lucky to be able to work here. We are here during the hottest part of the year, so that's not always ideal, but really can't complain. Yeah. But yeah. And yet, please don't worry, everybody. Lenina's right. I've been drinking water all day. I know what I'm doing here. I'm a professional. Thank you. And hydroxyapatite is the mineral part of your bones. That's what it's called. That's what that chemical is called. Hydroxyapatite. Yeah. Oh, and that's a Hyrax related to elephants. Yeah, Charlie's Dragon. And, yeah, that completely different. But yeah. That's actually Dawn's favorite animal. Dawn loves Hyraxes. Little Afrotheres. Maybe we'll get him to talk about Hyraxes in a little bit, but I just had him talk for a long time. And My Dolphin Fin says, what does the local Mormon population think you were digging up? Do they believe in dinosaurs? I think it kind of depends. Anytime you talk to people about like religious beliefs, there's always a lot of inconsistency. Unless there's like super rigid doctrine. And I think most people who are part of the LDS Church they're on board with the existence of dinosaurs. Hopefully they are. If not, that'd be a big problem. Utah has got more dinosaurs than pretty much any other state in the Union. And so, yeah, I don't know. Trying to square that circle would be kind of difficult. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like for the most part, the state of Utah in general, you know, religious people and non-religious people alike are, they're pretty keen on dinosaurs. Proud of their dinosaurian heritage here. Their Mesozoic heritage, I should say. Utah has an incredible assortment of different dinosaurs from different time periods, and there's so much out there still to be found. It's nuts. Again, in this valley here, you know, to hear Jim say it, you could have a crew of 100 people digging here every summer for 100 years, and you'd just be scratching the surface of the dinosaurs that are just here in this valley. And there are dozens of places like this throughout Utah. This is a particularly special one, of course, In fact, it would be lovely to turn this into, say, a national monument someday, because it is a truly unique place. But there are definitely a lot of other places throughout Utah, too, that have got really, really incredible fossil sites. But yeah. And Mikey Lake says, I'm not in the church, but they absolutely know and celebrate dinosaurs. Yeah, there's a paleontology museum at BYU, Brigham Young University. And there are a number of LDS paleontologists there, too. So that's definitely a thing. Yeah. And so Dasher says, so was this a lake? Yeah, about 140 million years ago. This would have been kind of a swampy floodplain kind of area. And we see evidence of that in the actual quarry where we're digging. See remnants of tree ferns and other plants like that. Things that are, used to humid, wet climates. That's exactly what was going on here. And Volcano Doc says, what makes it unique compared to the other fossil sites in the area? I think the age of this particular site makes it really special and really important. So we're at the very dawn of the Cretaceous here. Like, these rocks are about 140 million years old, give or take. We'll talk to Jim more about that. Jim, who's really into stratigraphy. Talk to him about that when he gets here later in the week. But this could be the oldest Cretaceous site in North America. It could be the oldest Cretaceous dinosaur site in the Northern Hemisphere. It's pretty special. Oh, and it looks like we're tearing down already. All right. We wrapping up, Don?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, let me wrap up this broadcast so I can help with the takedown and everything. But yeah, I will be streaming again tomorrow with any luck. So I hope to see everybody again then. But I've got to help out the rest of the crew with our teardown here. And yeah, so let's do that. Let's see who else is live right now. Let's see. Go to watch. And then let's see here. Who else is on? Let's see. Science Streams is on. Let's go say hello to Balint over there at Science Streams. We're going to go say hello to a fellow scientist. There we go. My channel. Chat. There we go. Raid Science. It would help if I'd spell it correctly. Oh, come on now. Science _ streams. Not Strawams, streams. There we go. Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. I hope you're someplace cooler than I am right now. 103 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a little toasty. But we'll be doing some more digging tomorrow. I'll be answering some more of your questions. I'll hopefully be starting a little bit earlier, too. And we'll probably be going for a little bit longer. We're wrapping up a little bit early today because we don't want to push it on our first day. We want to take it a little bit easy. So I hope you take it easy, everybody, too. And, yeah, without further ado, let's go right into Science Streams. I'll see you there. All right. And I'll hope to see you tomorrow, too. Again, live from the field. Till then, bye-bye.